Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. How can understanding family dynamics transform parent-child relationships? If you're the parent of a neurodivergent child, you'll want to listen to this episode with licensed marriage and family therapist Lafaya Mitchell, where she shares her innovative relational approach to supporting neurodiverse children and their families. Lafaya is also the mother of 3 children, 2 of whom are autistic. In part 1 of this conversation, we discuss the 4 core strategies of the Lafaya Way, what she calls the emotion-soaking phenomenon, how a parent's experiences from the past can affect their decision-making now, how to set boundaries with kids, and navigating parental expectations. In this episode, discover what's possible when your responses are truly aligned with your intentions. And now I present you, Lafaya Mitchell. Hi, Lafaya. Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here.
Could you introduce yourself for our listeners?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lafaya Mitchell. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm the creator of the Lafaya Way, an advanced relational philosophy. I mostly deal with parents who have children who are neurodiverse, and for years I've been teaching them how to get along better with, engage, and all those wonderful things with their children.
All right. So how did you begin working with the autistic population?
Oh man, it's an interesting story because, in school, we kind of got like a tiny little blurb about autism that told me absolutely nothing. And then years later, I ended up being invited by a friend to be a part of a program, an intensive outpatient program. And there, most of their work was with children who were on the spectrum. And so it was at that time that I actually started to learn more about autism spectrum disorder because I didn't know very much. I did know, though, at the time because it kind of coincided with my having my daughter who had all kinds of, autism spectrum traits, but I did not know about autism at the time. But the way that I kind of worked with her helped me in my work there with the children at the center. So it's just interesting how I ended up, it was like almost at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So
you actually have 3 children.
Yes.
Okay. And the 2 younger ones are on the spectrum. Is that correct?
They are, but I tend to tell them that they have traits just because if they understand that better.
Okay. So could you tell us a little bit about them? How old are they and what are some of their interests?
Okay, so my 2 youngest are 19 and 17. My 19-year-old, his interests are few. So he loves, like he's the Dungeons and Dragons kid who basically did not have like a sleepover until he was 17. And, so he's pretty isolated. He's a great kid, but he's more of my I don't care kid. So, if he's not really interested in what you're saying, then, he won't hear you, things like that. And my daughter, she had quite a been, he was kind of the hand flapper and that kind of thing. But my daughter, she's more of the sensory overload kid. So it was everything would cause disruption for her, loud noises, people trying to look at her in the eyes, and she just had lots of struggles as a baby, lots of crying and aversion to kind of other people. Basically with her, I just kind of worked her slowly, with full acceptance so that we could get her so that she could take in, like the eye contact and certain noises. We kind of taught her how to verbalize the frustrations or to physically do things that would cause her to be able to self-regulate and that kind of thing. So yeah, she's kind of my sensory nightmare kid.
Oh, okay. And how are they doing now? Do they live at home with you?
Yes, they live at home with me and they're doing great. They both do very well. They're both highly intelligent. My son is now in college. Well, he's going to a JC, junior college. And my daughter, she's in high school. She is a straight A student. She does very well. She's very interested in anime. She has a very restricted group of friends. She does not really like many other people. And yeah, she's just full immersion in Asian culture. Like teaches herself how to write in Chinese, speak Japanese, speak Korean. She's
Wow.
an interesting kid and an artist. So like everything that she takes an interest in, I take an interest in so that we can empower her, through her strength areas.
Hmm. And what's the dynamic like between the three of them? Your oldest is a son also, right?
Yes, he's 29, so he
Okay.
doesn't live with us, but they all get along really well. Like I said, my oldest son is like Mr. Cool. Like he was Mr. Popularity in school and all of that. And so he's 10 years older, than the next. So
Hmm.
he's like the big brother who maybe if they were closer to the same age, he might not have been as nice. He
Hmm.
did have some struggles, like when he was a teenager and they were, like 7 and 5, and why do they do that? And they should, kind of thing. And so had to kind of help him move out of that space because he would want to make them cool like him, you
Hmm.
know. And so, but they all get along really well.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Well, my younger two, it's like a love hate, like with any brother sister. So they
Hmm.
drive each other nuts, and they both have a tendency toward enjoying, I shouldn't say it this way, but they kind of enjoy annoying people.
Hmm.
But
Each other?
I'm the, anybody, but I'm the
Oh,
same
okay.
way.
Okay.
I'm kind of the same way. So it's been an interesting journey with them because when they were really young, they used to fight a lot, but it doesn't really benefit them because I'm a different kind of parent, and I don't really get upset about arguments and things like that. I only come to certain conclusions. So as opposed to becoming emotionally upset, which kind of feeds the beast, in them, that kind of, not that they're doing it on purpose or
Hmm.
anything, but kind of feeds that little inner satisfaction with annoying people. Um, what I tend to do is I would tell them, well, that's not going to work out well for you, because I'm just the only assumption I can make because I have two wonderful kids is that like if you're arguing a lot, then maybe you're both overtired or something. And so, it just became
Hmm.
non-beneficial for them to
Hmm.
fight a lot.
Hmm.
So they kind of don't. They annoy each other sometimes, but they don't really, go too far with it. They get along really well.
That's good. You mentioned that you're a different kind of parent. So, what made you develop your approach the Lafaya Way?
Man, okay, so my approach is literally my approach. It's like I've always been a little strange, a little different. So it was just natural for me to be less emotionally reactive to what they were doing, to be more like logically reactive, which it attracts their interest more or their compliance more when there's logic. So, for example, things like if they don't want to clean their room, that kind of thing, it's like I understand that. It's logical. Like, I wouldn't want to clean my room either, like as a choice. And so for me, when they don't want to clean their room, it's not like this personal offense. It's not like I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I do all these things for you and you can't just clean your room, right? Which is a typical parental response. But mine is more like, ooh, I really don't blame you. But, since none of us like bugs, we want to keep the room clean. Like things
Yeah.
like that, right? And
Hmm.
so the philosophy that I work from is more logic based. And I was extremely resistant at first to trying to make it a thing. But it was just like after a lot of years of working with parents and they kept telling me, you have to tell other people what it is that you're doing because this actually works for our kids. And the work that I was doing was with kids who had been failing treatment for like 5, 10 years. It was ridiculous, like with no results. Then it was almost like I kind of got to that last kid, and I remember her very specifically, where her dad said, "Man, she's been seeing therapists for 10 years," and she was like completely. The whole family was like immersed in like the trauma experience, right? Of just her, nobody really being able to help them or relate to her. And so it was 10 years of her suffering. And then a very short time with me, things really started to shift and change. And there were thoughts that the parents had that were inaccurate. And there was just a lot. And so then I was like, okay, you know what? I do need to share this with people because kids should not suffer for that long just because people aren't informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the profile of children that you help parents with?
Well, typically, I like to say it's what people are referring to as a neurodiverse child now. So, ADHD kids, some of the reactive attachment kids, trauma kids who've had histories based in trauma, any children who are very sensitive to the feeling energies of other people. And that's especially true when you're dealing with kids who are on the autism spectrum. I don't think it's as bad now, but one of the previously common mistakes that people would make is to believe that children on the spectrum don't really feel very much,
Mm-hmm.
And it really is that there's just a lot of overwhelm that's happening. Not that they don't feel, but that it's just basically like sensory overload to deal with the typical like human experience because human beings are very illogical. I mean, they tend to be, sorry, very illogical. And so if you can get past that piece, then all of a sudden you're gaining better results because you're actually speaking to the children from a space that shows that you actually understand their experience as opposed to you're guessing based on your own experience.
Right. So parents are coming to you because they are having a hard time teaching their kids something or having a hard time relating to their kids. Is that right?
Having a hard time related to their kids, which oftentimes leads to, just there ends up being behavioral issues, lots of unhealthy relating, so the relationships are completely and totally damaged, and lots of devastation all over the place. So the children aren't functioning at the level that they can function. The parents know this and they're frustrated. Children are frustrated with how the parents treat them. That's typically what I get.
And what ages of children do you work with?
I've actually worked with children at age even going as low as 2 to 3 years old, but I tend more towards that around that age 8 because it takes a while usually to get diagnoses or to have some of the extreme behavior issues that bring parents into therapy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes they don't come in when there are minor issues. They just kind of see it as non-compliance or whatever. But once it starts to cause an extreme disruption, which usually can happen anywhere, once they get to 5 or 6, you can get some extreme disruptions.
How would you define those disruptive behaviors?
It could be being overly argumentative, all the way down to hitting the parents. Right? You know there are so many behaviors that disrupt, and it depends on the family as well, that disrupts family functioning enough for parents to want to seek therapy. Some come in because their kids refuse to do anything that they ask them to do. Some parents come in because their children are failing in school and they don't understand why, refusing to do homework at home. There are a variety of reasons why they come out and seek therapy.
Okay. So, Lafaya, you've published 3 books in the Lafaya Way series. And first, I want to say that I would recommend these books to any parent who wants to better understand their child because it's so easy to read and it's very relatable. The language that you use, it makes you just kind of want to keep turning the page. So I really enjoyed reading them and I would recommend them to other people who are interested. Now, I want to get into some of the details of your approach. You talk about a phenomenon that you call emotion soaking. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Yes, emotion soaking is the unintentional sponging of the feeling energies of those around you. Previously, I defined it as those you're interacting with, but has evolved. So if it's those that you're interacting with, then the emotion soaking is even stronger, but you can also soak in the emotions of just those in general in the room with you. So this is why a lot of the children who do emotion soak, like children who are on the spectrum, especially with spectrum ADHD kids, reactive attachment kids, those with trauma histories, which I would say all those experience trauma just in not being understood.
Mm-hmm.
They will take in what's going on, the inner experiences of others. So even if someone is trying to present as calm on the outside, if they are in turmoil internally, then what I call the hypersensitive child, the child who's sensitive to the stimuli outside of them, and I always say the six senses. So we have the five senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, all those things, right? Very sensitive there, but also throw in that sixth piece, which is the inner experiences of others.
Mm-hmm.
They often will be overwhelmed throughout the day just from being in a classroom or being in a work environment, because you have so many bodies all around you that there's so much that you're taking in all day long.
Mm-hmm. So how will understanding this help parents in interacting with their kids?
But it helps parents because it gives them my first things first, which is, if you do not interact with a hypersensitive child and with a calm internal experience, then you can expect that you're going to get very difficult reactions from that child, because they're going to take what's coming from you, they're going to soak that in, and sometimes it'll be multiplied in them times 10, and they won't understand that feeling energy came from you. They will believe that it's their own feeling energy, which has become now their own feeling energy, because they take it on as their own now. That's why I call it the sponging, taking in as their own. And then you will misunderstand their reaction to what it is you're saying to them. The more knowledgeable you are about what's really going on, like understanding the real truth, the better you can respond. So then if you've had a bad day at work, you ask a child to clean their room and they have a meltdown, then you can understand that perhaps there's a possibility that maybe they took in some of that energy that you had, which you knew felt bad in the first place, that you had, and that's why they're having the strong reaction, not simply just the clean your room.
Hey, Rachel here. Are you enjoying this episode? Want to hear more valuable content from others you can relate with? Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can stay up to date on future episodes. And now back to the conversation. You break down your approach into two primary components, right? So there's the know yourself, which kind of ties into this, right? Like knowing your own inner turmoils, and knowing your child.
Yes.
So how do you guide parents to know themselves?
Okay, now I've actually found a way to help them to know themselves and know their child and understand that it's all interconnected, because we all have to be able to communicate with one another. And the way I've been able to capture it is through my core four strategy. Okay, and the core four strategy of the Lafaya Way, which now again it's evolved, I call my FUR approach, so that it's easier. I love acronyms, easier to remember. Okay, when you do that, then when you get to know yourself and know your child, when you're operating under the FUR, right? The first step is the F, find your calm, right? And with the FUR, it all works together like the ingredients to a cake. And if you treat it that way, then you'll know all the ingredients have to be involved. You're constantly stirring, right? In order to make this work. If you're missing any of the key ingredients, then you'll end up with something not tasty or ugly or not lovely. Right? And so so finding your calm has to be the first line of defense, because emotion soaking is such a big element. And you can find your calm through following the other steps, which is the second step. Step 2 is understand the real truth. When you understand the real truth, then all of our reactivity, which that'll follow into the next step, all of our reactivity to what's going on turns into now responsiveness instead of reactivity. When you understand the real truth, then when you're in a bad mood or your child is in a bad mood, you can do check-ins. So I have lots of acronyms to do check-ins. So one of those is like the HALT I use from the 12 Steps program. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When you're understanding the real truth, if you're really cranky or they're really cranky, and this is a know yourself, know your child piece, you can say, I wonder if, being hungry, angry, lonely, or tired are playing a part in here. Oh, I did stay up late last night. Oh, they did stay up late last night. Or, I didn't have breakfast or they didn't have lunch, whatever. And then you can start to figure out what components might be playing. And I also have another acronym that I'd use. That's it. I won't go all the way into it, but that goes into triggers. Is this a trigger area for me or them? Right? Is there a history that causes us to have a strong reactivity to this kind of thing? Right? And what's another embarrassing moment? So awkward under the that's it. Is this an awkward moment? Are they embarrassed because I said something to them in front of other people? Am I embarrassed because they did something in front of other people? What that does is you might have the emotional response, like you might have the sting that I always say, the sting that happens on the inside when these things happen, but then you won't, what happens when you have the strong emotional response is the brain tends to, by default, automatically try to figure out what happened to cause the bad feeling. Okay, and usually the brain's going to think of whatever is on the surface. Well, you said this or you did that will be the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're empowered with this, now understanding the real truth, then when the brain tries to default there, then you can say, wait, okay, could it be hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Could it be a trigger space? So then it reduces the intensity and kind of the seriousness we take in this emotional reaction that happens in the body. So it gives you a way to have a better response, which takes me into the third step, which is to respond in alignment with your truest intentions. Now that is evolved from the book series. Now the books, they still give you everything that you need, but like I said, over years, things evolve. So respond in alignment with your truest intentions, which is what? Okay, as a parent, you know that you want your children to feel safe, cared for, loved, all those wonderful things. But you get into reactions that reflect none of that, right? So when you're responding in alignment with your truest intentions, you're keeping in mind, which is understanding the real truth, another element of that, right? But you're keeping in mind, what do I really want to get out of this interaction? What do I really want in my home? If you say that you want peace in your home and you're yelling, then you're operating entirely against your own truer intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more to it because, and then when you're responding, your responses are not in alignment with your truest intentions, then you're going to feel more intensely upset because you're going against your own self.
It's like guilty in a way.
Yes. Respond in alignment with your truest intentions. And then the last is what I call my 3 R's. Because that's why I say fur is like a long fur.
Okay.
with a long R. But what I call my 3 R's, and people always tell me, that's 6 steps. I'm like, nope, it's 4 steps and 3 R's go together.
Sneaking in those extra steps, yeah.
And then that last piece, the 3 R's are what keeps the longevity. So now you're finding your calm, so you're reducing the effects of emotion soaking. You're understanding the real truth, which helps you to find your calm and respond in alignment with your truest intentions. You're responding in alignment with your truest intentions. And then to keep those in place, then the first in my 3 R's is recognize the small step improvements, because it's not going to go from 1 to 100, right? This is going to happen in small steps. If you recognize those small steps, this is what will start to insert the hope that you need in order to keep going with what it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
When you recognize the small steps, then the second R is to reinforce them highly. Okay, so when you recognize a small step improvement, reinforce them highly. So if your kid would melt down for 2 hours before, and that meltdown it kind of moved down to now because now you're having better reactions or better responses to them. Now it's only an hour. That is an improvement. Actually, that's a huge improvement. If it's 10 minutes less than what it was before, that's an improvement. You want to recognize that. You want to reinforce it and say, hey, I know you had a hard time, but you know what? It used to be this and now it's this. What'd you do? Like, how did you get to a point to where you're able to regulate faster? Those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm. Kind of builds momentum also in the child.
Right. So now you're giving yourself hope and you're giving your child hope when you recognize and reinforce. And the last R is repeat. It's kind of like my rinse and repeat.
Okay.
Like that's kind of like my stirring, right?
Yeah.
Repeat. And when I say repeat, I mean always understand that you're vacillating, that you're moving through the 4 steps consistently. It's not like it's happening in order. It's that they happen all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that 4 step FIR approach of the Lafaya Way that really it helps parents and children. It reduces, eliminates that traumatic experience that they have with trying to relate to one another. So now they're actually really able to, that love that you feel toward the other, they're actually really able to convey what they truly mean to convey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It takes a lot of self-awareness on the parent's part to be able to stop and remain calm in those really stressful situations.
Yes, in an original series, it was Remain, and I changed it. I moved it from Remain Calm to Find Your Calm because Find Your Calm is easier to relate to now. Because Find Your Calm means, okay, I have it. I have this within me, right? It's just I kind of maybe have to search for it. I have to figure out a way to get to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is a way to, and like you said, to help parents become more self-aware. My goal is to help people to become truer to themselves ultimately. And when they're truer to themselves, then they're able to relate in the way that they truly want to with their children.
Yeah. And you also talk about how a parent's past experiences might impact their ability to make decisions now. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, now that comes in along with the understanding the real truth. Okay. So past experiences is so very important to recognize how the things that you have gone through in your life, like for example, if you've ever felt bullied by your own parents or other people out there, if you have children who are defiant or what people call defiant, which I don't love that word, but who, don't do what it is you say, that may trigger in you some of that old feeling of having been disrespected or bullied or mistreated or whatever, and it's going to cause your reactivity to be at a higher level. So people have to understand when there's strong emotional reactivity, that has far more to do with what your experiences have been in this life than it does with the thing that's happening right there in the moment, especially when you're getting extremely upset about things like a kid saying no, or a kid saying, right, when they're saying no, and it's not a sign of complete disrespect for you, it's a thing that they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And or
Yeah.
if they don't comply when you ask them to do something, a lot of parents see that as disrespect or they shoulds and all that kind of stuff, and all that's based in your past experiences, not in its in that strong emotional reactivity that you're having to it. It doesn't serve you because the kid can't come along with you when you're telling them that they don't clean their rooms, so this means they don't care about anybody else, or they don't appreciate anything you've done for them. Then you're illogical now to that child, so now they cannot trust you and your opinion about things,
Yeah.
right? Which creates now a situation where they don't take you seriously because you don't know what you're talking about. And with kids, you definitely want it to feel like you know what you're talking about.
Right. And especially with some neurodiverse kids who think in very concrete ways and need things to make sense to them. When you're adding a story or adding a meaning to the situation, it's not helping them understand it. Like
Not at all.
this feeling of being disrespected or feeling that they're trying to manipulate you or something, that's all something that you're adding to the situation.
Yes, yes. And I actually visit that concept of manipulation in the books as well, because parents, it's important that they find a new way to view things, okay? Because this concept of manipulation, no matter how you look at it, it's the child is working against themselves. And since we can never clearly define, right, or we can nearly never 100% guarantee that we're correct in assuming that the behaviors are based in manipulation, then it's more important to go to what's the end of the experience for you. So if you're experiencing what they're doing as a manipulation, then at the end of the day, if you see it as, okay, well, this behavior is clearly manipulative and is working against my child because it's going to get them resentment or less of what it is that they want, right? As opposed to this is manipulation they must think that I'm stupid, and now I'm upset because they're offensive to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you go the other way, which is more solutions focused. Oh, this behavior right here is going to completely and totally work against them. So let me help them to engage in behavior that will work in their favor. If you make that shift, even if you have a kid who doesn't tell the truth a lot, then you don't have to, call them out and no, you're a liar, and all these things that people do, and they get even then they're upset about them being a liar, all this emotional stuff. All you have to do is say, okay, well, you know what? Even if this lie that they told were the case, this won't work out well for you because these are the things that you need to do in order to get more of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then it makes a shift so that you're no longer, and that's one of the big pieces to decreasing the amount of upset with, finding your calm, that area right there. The amount of upset is by decreasing personalization of the behaviors of others. If you don't personalize what it is they're doing and you keep what they're doing about them, then all of a sudden that your emotional reactivity is reduced. I mean, what, 90%, right? Or more, right? Depending on who you are. But it's so important to when someone else is making a mistake. And when I say this is an advanced relational philosophy, I mean, it works great, especially, for neurodiverse people, period. So, and I know that I've written this, for parents and all that, but now this has grown again. It's expanded now to be relationship, period. So we're doing this in staff developments. We're doing this with couples and all of that. But if someone is doing something that is upsetting to you and you love them and they love you, then you have to start recognizing it as them working against themselves. Okay, I know that you love me, right? You will tell me that you love me on a good day. Like, sometimes as certain kids, you're not going to get that, but that's the truth when it's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I know that you love, and what's happening now is this behavior right here is causing me not to like you so much, right? And to be disliked by someone you love is very hurtful. And even if they don't recognize it in the moment, who cares? Oh, I don't care about how other people feel. And then it's, oh, I'm really sad because no one likes me. Okay. Go by, what their ultimate reaction is going to be to not being liked, as opposed to the words that are coming out of their mouths, right? At the time. But when you recognize that they're working against themselves, what that does is it helps to kick in that protectiveness, like especially for parents. Your parental protectiveness kicks in when you recognize, oh, this kid is really working against themselves, because it's really going to be really difficult to have high self-esteem when you have a parent who doesn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you see it that way, you can go into problem solving instead of personalization.
Could it maybe backfire though if you tell them what you're saying right now makes me not like you in this moment? Could that lead to lower self-esteem?
Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to say that to them. This is a thought
Okay.
process. So
Okay,
this is an
got it.
inner, sorry. This is an inner process for a parent to go through so that when they do address the child, they can tell them, hey, this is not really going to work in your favor because it's going to get you less of what you want, and I'd like to be with you and get you more of what you want. So for example, when they won't clean their room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've asked them to clean their room and it's work, the concept is, you work before you play. I know that sucks, right? Like I understand that sucks, but that's how the world works. And I would be a terrible, terrible parent if I taught you otherwise, right? So work before play. And so they don't clean their room. So, and they love video games, whatever, then it's like, oh my goodness, okay, look, parents who set good boundaries, they will have the video game play come after the work is done. That's just the smartest way to do it. That's the best way to avoid having the same problem every day. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of parents don't do that, but be a smart thing to do. But you tell them, hey, it has to, the way it works in the world is work before play. I know that you know that, and it kind of sucks, but it's the way it works. So I have to teach that in the household. So I need the chores to be done before you'll have access to your game. So please set yourself up to have access to your game because we both want you to have that, because that would make you so much happier, right? then just like a different way of relating. So that now you're speaking to the thing that they want. And not that I'm taking anything away from you either. It's just this happens before this. So that's very concrete, very logical instead of emotional.
Yeah. And it's also guiding parents to be more empathetic with their children too. Like that language of, I know this sucks, but this is what we have to do right now. So kind of meeting them at that level instead of just dismissing it and coming from an authoritative point of view.
Yes, it's an I'm on your side approach. We can't expect, see, a lot of times that's why I say a lot of families it's almost like they have PTSD, like there's true trauma that's happened here, right? It's because it feels like they were at war, like they're not on the same side. This language brings you into a space where it's like, hey, we're on each other's side. Because if you're on their side, they're going to be more inclined to be on your side.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and come back next Thursday for part 2 of my conversation with Lafaya, where we talk about common challenges that parents face when trying to understand their child's needs. Thanks for listening. Take care.